So let's take a look at this link between these recent teen killers and video games.
Violent video games increase aggressive behavior as much as lead exposure decreases children's IQ scores.
Where is the artistic value of shooting innocent victims?
They put guns in the hands of little kids and teach them how to kill.
He was trained to kill with Call of Duty and other video games.
Is it true that violent video games make people more violent?
So is there a link between violent video games and these recurring acts of mass killing in our society? Well, the answer may not be as clear-cut as you think. Joining me now, live from Philadelphia, is Dr. Patrick Markey. He's an associate professor of psychology at Villanova University who researches video game violence. Dr. Markey, let's just get right to it. There's been plenty of research out there which shows a link between violent video games and aggression. But can we go so far as to say that playing violent games triggers or leads someone to committing any violent act?
No, it's very difficult to make that kind of claim. That, as you said, we know that violent video games are linked to increases in hostility and so forth, but there's really no evidence to suggest that such violent media is linked to these shootings or really any real-world violence. That what we find in our laboratory studies are very small effects affecting our thoughts, our cognitions, but not so much affecting our actual real behaviors.
97% of 12-17-year-olds in the U.S. played video games in 2008, thus fueling an $11.70 billion domestic video game industry. In 2008, 10 of the top 20 best-selling video games in the U.S. contained violence. 1. Violent video games have been blamed for school shootings, increases in bullying, and violence towards women. Critics argue that these games desensitize players to violence, reward players for simulating violence, and teach children that violence is an acceptable way to resolve conflicts. Video game advocates contend that a majority of the research on the topic is deeply flawed and that no causal relationship has been found between video games and social violence. They argue that violent video games may reduce violence by serving as a substitute for rough and tumble play and by providing a safe outlet for aggressive and angry feelings. A small study offers a mixed view on whether video games may make kids more aggressive. Those children who spend more time playing games might be slightly likelier to be hyperactive and to get into fights. But violent video games seem to have no effect on behavior, according to British researchers. The researchers also said they discovered that kids who played video games for less than an hour a day were more likely to be less aggressive and rated as better behaved by their teachers. And even if spending a lot of time playing video games every day may alter the way kids act in everyday life, all observed behaviors were very small in magnitude, suggesting only a minor relationship at best and that games do not have as large an impact as some parents and practitioners worry, said study author Andrew Przebilski. He is an experimental psychologist at the Oxford Internet Institute at Oxford University. In the study, researchers looked at 217 teens, 110 males and 107 females, and examined both their video game playing habits and their personalities as judged by their teachers. A bit more than half of the girls had never played video games, compared to just 13% of the boys. 16%, 18, of the boys played video games more than 3 hours a day, compared to 3%, 4, of the girls. The researchers found that the 22 kids who played video games the most each day were the likeliest to have behavioral problems, exhibit hyperactivity and have trouble academically, although the effects were quite small in magnitude, Przebilski said. He added that there's no way to know whether kids are drawn to video games because of their personalities, or whether video games alter their personalities. The kinds of video games that the kids played appeared to have no effect after the researchers adjusted their statistics so factors such as gender wouldn't have an effect. And there was even an unexpected benefit to playing for short amounts of time each day, the study authors found. Individuals who regularly played less than an hour a day of any type of game were actually less likely than their non-playing peers to fight with or bully peers and were rated as better behaved by their teachers, said study co-author Alison Fine-Mishkin, a graduate student at Oxford Internet Institute. This suggests that, in small doses, video games are a valuable and valid form of play which we do not need to fear. Studies show that certain types of video games may improve hand-eye coordination, problem-solving skills, and the mind's ability to process information. Sometimes, though, video games cause more health troubles than benefits. People who spend too much time sitting while playing video games don't get enough exercise. Lack of exercise can play a role in many health problems, including becoming overweight or obese. Experts also worry that too much video gaming can interfere with a person's life, hurting things like school performance and friendships. Some psychiatrists are concerned that certain people might even become addicted to playing video games. And it's still unclear what impact games with violent or inappropriate sexual content might have on the brain. Although the jury's still out on the subject, for now it makes sense to enjoy the right kinds of games in moderation. Try mixing up your games. Stimulate your brain with strategy games sometimes, other times. Get up and get into games that allow you to physically interact with the action on the screen. Follow these tips. Limit your game playing time to 1 or 2 hours a day, and video game play can be part of a balanced, well-rounded life. Video games are not always bad for you, but you should always follow ratings set by the ESRB for best enjoyment for age groups.